Welcome to Recipes for Grief, heartfelt storytelling for feely foodies. I'm your host, Andrea Sexton Dumas.
Today on Recipes for Grief, I welcome Joél Simone Maldonado, also known as the Grave Woman. Y'all, this is such a rich conversation. I have to be honest, in many ways, I am still processing and digesting so much of what we discussed. Joél and I start out talking about Black funerals and food traditions. I feel like you can almost hear me kind of going through my list, trying to be really mindful of our time together. And then I feel like you can hear us becoming friends. Um, and one of the things that really stuck out to me in reflecting on our conversation, we talked a lot about ethics, the ethics and responsibility of digitizing and preserving family stories. We spoke about artificial intelligence and mass consciousness after death, animating the photos of our beloved dead, and AI communication with the dead. I mean, that really stretched my brain. We also discussed the ethics around divination and dreams and how Joél manages that as a death care provider. Another thing that we discussed is how on her podcast, Death and Grief Talk with the Grave Woman, she will highlight television and movies about death and grief. That kind of segue into talking about the prominence of alcohol use on reality TV. And then we both discussed how our relationship with alcohol has changed recently. I feel like she and I have so much more to discuss. So perhaps there will be a part two of this conversation one day. Joél Simone Maldonado, aka the Grave Woman, is a sacred end of life and grief care professional, award-winning educator, and founder of the Black Death, Grief, and Cultural Care Academy. She specializes in educating professionals about the importance of cultural competency, racial inclusion and diversity in the end of life, death, and grief care. Joél has worked in the death care industry since 2010 and has over 15 years of experience in the healthcare industry. She currently serves on the board of directors for Compassion and Choices, as co-chair of the board's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and volunteers with the African American Leadership Council. Joél educates the public through having open and honest conversations about death, dying, death care, and grief culture through the use of her courses, podcast, YouTube channel, and social media platforms. As always, all of the links and ways to connect with Joél will be in the episode page of your podcast player.
Joél Simone Maldonado, the Grave Woman herself. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrea. Am I saying your name correctly? Is it Andrea or Andrea?
Andrea.
Andrea, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's truly my honor. So I'd like to first start with asking you the question I ask all podcast guests. How have you been sleeping recently?
You know what? I have been sleeping really well. Thank you for asking.
Yes. That's wonderful to hear. That's not a common answer.
Really?
It's true. I don't know what's going on with us, so I'm glad that somebody is sleeping well.
Me too.
So you have many classes and platforms available on your website, thegravewoman.com, including the Black Grief, Death, and Cultural Care Academy that is, quote, dedicated to honoring, preserving, and sharing Black end-of-life, death, and grief care, ceremonies, rituals, and cultures. I was actually just speaking to someone recently about going to funerals as a child with my grandmother. I'm suspecting you might have had something similar. You have an uncle who was a funeral director. Can you talk a little bit about your childhood and the historical culture of grief and death in the Black community?
Definitely, and you're absolutely correct. My uncle Mark, who's my mother's brother, was what we refer to in the industry as a master mortician,
Mm.
meaning that he had met with countless families and had mastered the art of embalming just about any case you could think of,
Wow.
which is a huge feat, especially for someone to be as young as he was.
Mm.
But yes, I spent a lot of time with my uncle at the funeral home on services, on removals, as well as just at funerals, period. The historical significance of funerals in the Black community and grief in the Black community is tied to things like our enslavement in this country and homegoing being intended to celebrate the freedom of our spirit to return back to our motherland and place of origin. So, growing up here in Beaufort, South Carolina, which is one of the main uh, or centric places for the Gullah and Geechee community, caring for those that had passed away or that were in transition was a communal event. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just something that the funeral director did. Caring for families was something that I learned to do from my mother and grandmothers and other women in the community through the missionary society at church. And if
Mm.
anyone isn't familiar with that society, it's normally a group of women, elderly retired women. My mother was unique in the sense that she was not elderly nor retired at the time. But we spent our Saturdays going and visiting people in nursing homes, going and cleaning homes of those that were in transition or that had passed away, taking food to
Mm.
people and just caring for the community in that area, in that way. I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad you brought that up because you recently just hosted the Gullah Geechee Cultural Immersion Excursion. And so I was wondering if you could actually wax poetic a little bit more about the importance of food, the repast in Black families and funerals. It's such a, it's such an aspect. It's the
Yes.
person I was just speaking with was talking about, like, you might find yourself doing the electric slide at the repast.
Right. It definitely is. And just to speak specifically to food, within all cultures, there are certain customary or traditional to eat when someone passes away, right? For example, in the Midwest, it's casserole or funeral potatoes or things like
Mm.
um, in Chinese culture, of course, or Asian culture, there's a lot of rice, and rice has, symbology around death.
Mm-hmm.
But here in the Gullah and Geechee culture, I learned this last week at the event, the
Mm.
Gullah Geechee Cultural Immersion Excursion, that oysters had a significance. They represented immortality,
Oh, wow.
and they were often oyster shells were often given or gifted to families that had suffered a loss because it represented the continuation of that spirit. So, I mean,
Mm.
it's just fascinating. But here, particularly seafood, rice, greens, yams, what else, chicken, even pork. It has very, very, very strong cultural ties to our belief systems, and also are served in many cases. It's a running joke between one of my best friends and I, who recently lost her fiance, that she was tired of the damn chicken. And I showed up at being, not really being malicious, but I showed up at their family home with a box of Popeye's chicken. And she's like, I know you did not bring no more damn chicken in this house. I told you I'm sick of chicken. But I mean, in the Black community, that is something that's traditional. People prepare various chicken, barbecue chicken, fried chicken, baked chicken, grilled chicken.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what the significance is, but it's common. And you're absolutely correct. That electric slider, that dance and that celebration ties back to homegoing.
That's
And
right.
after we've cried and we've moted and we've hooped, hollered, and expressed our grief, in many cases in the church, we gather together to eat, not only to replenish our bodies, but also our souls. And
Mm.
dance is a big part of that, moving our bodies. And if you think about it, it's really rooted in, for lack of a better word, it's very root chakral, just
Yes.
to move your body and the beats and just moving and clapping, singing and waving. It's very primitive, like
Yes.
a primitive form of energy expression.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I heard this quote once. I think it was a missionary who had gone into Africa and colonized, and they were writing in their diary, and they said, one thing is for sure, their God loves music.
I love that.
No,
I
right?
love that.
On one of your podcast episodes, your podcast is called Death and Grief Talk Podcast. You mentioned your great great grandmother, who you called Aunt Vic,
Mhm.
and you referred to some of the dishes that she would make, including pork chop sandwiches and okra and shrimp. Can you tell
Woo,
us a little bit more about Aunt Vic and her cooking?
definitely. So the reason I call her Aunt Vic is because I did not know until I was an adult that she was my great great grandmother.
Wow.
Um, Aunt Vic was she had to be in her 80s when I was a little kid. Like when I say little kid, I mean 6 or 7.
Hmm.
And her house was the place where I got to go and just I don't know how to describe it. She lived out in a tiny house out in the country down a long dirt road, but it never felt isolated. It
Mm.
always felt so full because my cousins were there. Her brother lived at the head of that dirt road with his family. And whenever we would get there on the weekends, everybody would just be at Aunt Vic's house. And if you can imagine maybe watching an era movie where an older Black woman lives out in the country, it would probably be pretty accurate to Aunt Vic's house.
Mm.
This was okra that she grew. These pork chop sandwiches were created from the pigs that she had in her yard. Like
Wow.
it, and to think about the fact now that she was 80 years old and still out in the field picking okra and growing okra and
Hmm.
had animals around her, it just to me it's amazing. It's a testament to the fact that we come from just good stock,
Yeah.
literally. She also was just so warm. I don't remember her ever talking much,
Mm.
just her energy was of love and warmth. And I could tell that she and my father had a very, very, very close connection just by the way she would look at him. And
Mm.
to me, again, thinking back now as an adult, how important that was for him to be looked at with such love, for a Black man to be able to know that he had a safe space. And when I think about it, she was that safe space for him. So automatically she became a safe space for us.
Mm. Mm. Oh gosh, that just melts my heart. That's so beautiful. You had mentioned in one of your episodes, this was from a couple years ago, that you had recently found an audio cassette tape of
Mm-hmm.
you interviewing Aunt Vic. And at the time you were going to get it restored and digitized. Have
Mm-hmm.
you done that? And how was it listening to that tape?
To be honest with you, I have not done it yet. It's actually sitting on my dresser. And I did find someone to digitize it. I think for me, it's not a fear, but I know that that audio comes with a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I want to gift it to my father, but of course I want to hear it because I do believe in self-fulfilling prophecy. And
Mm.
once I hear those words, hear her answers, hear that conversation between the two of us, I feel like there's going to be a level of responsibility that comes with that. And
Mm-hmm.
I just have not been in the place to take on that responsibility yet.
Yes.
However, it's so funny that you asked that because I've been thinking about Father's Day coming up in about 2 months. And it hit me recently that the longer I wait to give this gift to my father, the less time he has to enjoy it.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
or
Yeah.
if I keep waiting, maybe I won't have the opportunity. So thank you for asking that question. You
Yes.
have done your research.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Oh, look, when you said yes, I'm like, oh, I have to come correct. Let's go.
I
So
love
I actually, my day job is in digitization, and I tell
it.
all of our clients just dropping off your project is the hardest part. Most,
Okay.
yeah, like most people wait a couple years. I find this, I notice patterns. I'm sure you do as well. And that's just a pattern where people find something and it is weighty. It
Hmm.
holds it's grief. It's also a griefful experience because we're also listening to the voices of younger versions of ourselves, but also people who have passed on. And so
Right.
most people do wait a couple years. So you're right on track.
Okay, that makes me feel better. And now that I know that this is what you do, perhaps I can utilize you. I would love for a Black woman to be the one that does this.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I will send you that information.
And I love what you said about grief because it's something else that came with that was that I know it'll open a door of grief for my father. And not that I think
Absolutely.
it will be a bad thing. It's just like you don't want to see your parents hurt, you know?
Yeah. 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 I actually have a audio cassette tape of my grandmother who was teaching me how to pray the rosary in
Mm,
Creole, and I
mm,
didn't digitize it for years.
mm.
I couldn't. Just to hear her voice, I miss her so much. But I will tell you, I've digitized it. It was only a small portion of the rosary, so I actually edited it into a full rosary. And now I pray the
Mm.
rosary with my grandmother every single night before I go to sleep.
Oh my God.
I know it's such a gift. I'm actually going to be releasing it on the podcast soon because it's
Oh,
also a dying language. And so for anyone who wants to pray the rosary with me and my grandmother,
that is beautiful.
it's truly a gift. It's truly a gift. And so your Aunt Vic is on your paternal side,
Yes.
but your maternal grandmother was raised by her great aunt.
Yes.
And you mentioned in a different podcast that she used to read tea leaves.
Yes. Um,
Yes.
yes. In the last month, I've actually had the opportunity to sit down with my my grandmother's cousins who were
Mm,
also influenced by that aunt Helen who raised my grandmother. Um, but yes, they did tea leaf readings. They did something called spinning the Bible. They did. I have a cousin that reads not the inside of your hands, but your knuckles. So there's like a line of spiritual gifts. My grandmother refers to them as columns, and we're trying to find out what that means because nobody
yes.
can give us a clear answer, but definitely, yes, she used to read tea leaves. My grandmother said it like it was a joke, but when I asked more questions to her cousins that I got to meet, they said it was, something she really did and was gifted at doing. And the thing that piqued my interest about that, honestly, I'd seen a episode of The Housewives, I think Housewives of New York, where they went to a
Uh-huh.
coffee grind reader. And I was like, oh, this is a thing. Like
Right.
it's a Turkish practice to read coffee grounds. But
Wow.
yeah, for some people with psychic gifts, they use tea leaves and coffee grounds. I guess you can use
Hmm.
anything.
Well, okay, so speaking of psychic gifts, in that episode, you kind of, maybe we're joking, but you were like, your grandmother and your mother shut down their gifts. And so
Hmm.
it seems like you've gotten their portions.
Hmm. I have. I have. And
So
I
one
think,
of your offerings on your website is intuitive grief coaching. And I was
yes,
wondering if you could speak about how your gifts of seeing and hearing and what other gifts you have, how that lends themselves to your work in the death space.
that is such a great question. And yes, I do offer what I call grief alchemy. And it's a combination. I'll answer this part and then I'll answer how it ties into the work I do. It's
Mhm.
a combination of like things I'm just interested in, like oracle cards and astrology and just being an extremely intuitive and sensitive person. I realize that a lot of times we look at our grief and the as a professional, funeral planning and executing certain aspects of death care work very linear or very one dimensional, when in reality, death care is divination, if you
Mm,
really think about it. If we want to get a little bit deeper, it's a form of alchemy, which is why I call it alchemy.
mhm,
We're transmuting something or transforming something like tragedy in some cases where children or young people or even older people pass away in tragic ways. And we're alchemizing that situation to make it aesthetic, to
mhm,
make it palatable, to make it have spiritual significance. And throughout my own journey and spiritual walk, I've learned that those same tools uh, oracle cards. I think you saw me light some sage and some Palo Santo
Hmm.
before I turned, like before we got started. Our zodiac signs and the way that we navigate life, like those same things can be applied to the way that we navigate death, our relationship with death, grief, and legacy planning. And so as a professional, those gifts, those psychic gifts have shown up in the form of literally, I don't want to say the dead talking to me like their mouths are moving, but being able to intuitively sense that a person likes this or prefers this, or even messages at times have come through to say, tell this person this. And it's like, okay, I yeah, sure, but then there's also the religious component, because like I said, my mother and my grandmother, my mother, I think more out of just, I don't want to say fear, but disinterest, and my grandmother out of religious belief have not necessarily turned their gifts off, but haven't actively pursued them, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. And so me being curious and kind of a rebel, it's like, okay, well, let me see where this goes, right? And
Hmm.
so professionally, there's an ethical line where, okay, I can't tell a person that this is going to make the situation better. However, I can present options, and that's where that word intuitive comes in,
Hmm.
especially as Black women, and our intuition has served as a lifeline.
Mm.
And teaching people to tap it, not just to lean on my intuition,
That's
but
right.
teaching you how to recognize signs, how to recognize messages, how to be open to communication, how to be vulnerable enough to be curious, especially when navigating grief. It it's a very thin line because there are practices performed within different religious groups and spiritual belief systems, right? And that's not really what I do.
Hmm.
It's more so, again, that intuition. What does this say? What does this feeling mean? Let me sit with this. Let me learn about my chakra system so that when an emotion comes up and I'm feeling things in my body, I can associate them with a time tested system that
Hmm.
aligns with certain things. So it's a delicate dance that I'm still learning. And
Yeah.
I literally put that on the website on my birthday, which was last Tuesday. And
Okay.
it's for me, it's embodying the gift of divination.
Yes. Yes. So happy belated birthday to
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thank you.
I
Thank
was
you.
definitely going to ask you what your sun sign was. So Pisces is in the house today.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you used the word alchemize. I was trying to call it earlier, just speaking about the dance and the music at
Mhm.
funerals, because that
Mhm.
is what it feels like for me. It's an alchemy in that moment of feeling the grief, acknowledging the loss, and then bringing it to this place of gratitude that they have gone home.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be there. Like the thing is, like, this all makes sense intellectually and from the outside, right? But when
Hmm.
you're in those moments of grief, you don't want to hear this. Like,
Right.
what do you mean? What are you talking about?
Right.
And so I say that almost as a disclaimer, to say that if someone is experiencing grief or is in the throes of grief or has just lost a loved one, it's okay if you don't have that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. However, I will say that a lot of times we get lost in our grief.
Mm-hmm.
And my intention with these intuitive and alchemizing services is to serve as some type of anchor and navigation system. Therapy, of course, mental health resources, of course, but again, it can't be one dimensional because the spiritual world is very real.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You were talking about getting curious, and just by studying your work for the past few years, you seem like a very curious person.
I am
Yeah.
sometimes to my own detriment, but yes, I am.
I'm wondering what are you curious about these days? What is at the edge for you?
You know what? I'm very curious about AI.
Mm,
Um, I have said for years that there's going to become, there's going to be a point in time where death care, and I don't know if necessarily AI is the word, but well, maybe artificial intelligence. Yeah, it is. They're
hmm
going to merge. And I mean, it's already happening, but I'm curious about what death care is going to look like when we're all on some type of interconnected physical like network in our autonomy. Like, how
mm,
are you? Like, I know how to embalm or take care of a deceased person who's passed away from natural causes, right? But I don't know how to care for a person who has certain components of nanotechnology in their anatomy,
mm,
and that part of them is yet alive, but their spirit and their physical body, and I'm using air quotes, is dead. I'm very curious about consciousness
mm,
and how our consciousness is constantly being uploaded. I'm looking at the AI companion right now on Zoom, right?
mm.
Um, I know this conversation is being recorded, and essentially, I am contributing to the mass consciousness of AI.
Wow.
What does that look like as far as intellectual property after death, as far as consciousness and personality, and who has rights to that, who has
Mm,
control of that, and how can that be reanimated in the future? I said to a friend of mine about 4 years ago, and that's another thing, like we can go down that rabbit hole, but like time and how much time has literally changed in the past 4 years since COVID.
yes.
But I said to my friend about 4 years ago, I said, there's going to be a FaceTime type thing where you can communicate with people that are dead, right? And literally, we see it. We don't recognize it as that, but I know you said you're in digitizing, right? So you've
Right.
seen those pictures where it's like a picture of a person that's dead, but
Right.
it's animated,
Right.
right? What's the next step to that? You have a voice, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have facial expression, and then you have a digital library of words in multiple languages where you're communicating with that person.
Right.
Um, so I'm curious about those things and how that will then define death, and
Yes.
how will we navigate death and artificial immortality.
Mm,
Um, I'm also very curious about motherhood.
mm.
um, I want to have children, but then also being very aware of everything that I just said. It, what do I believe? Like, do I believe that these things are okay? Do I believe there should be boundaries? Who should set those boundaries? So those are the things that I'm curious about right now.
Oh, wow. I'm so glad I asked that question.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't, it's funny because I kind of pushed them out of my mind.
Mm,
When that technology first came where they could reanimate a photo, like I haven't done it. My parents are deceased. My grandmother died many years ago. And like I'm almost like afraid to.
mm,
I I don't know. I don't know what that would feel like. My parents were disabled, and my mother was disabled for a very long time. So she was in a convalescent home, bedridden. To like see her moving, I think might like mess me up in my brain. Like
right.
I don't know if I can handle it.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
And like, who gets to define that? You know what I mean? Like, who
Yeah.
gets to, you may feel that way, but I don't know if your mother, if you have children, but what if 6 generations down the line, someone wants to see that, you know?
Right.
Um, and for me, it always boils down to the spiritual essence of something. And when I say spiritual, I don't mean a dogma. I mean the essence of who we are, like your breath,
Yeah.
your thoughts, your feelings. I don't know that we'll have autonomy over those things soon.
Mm,
And I don't know that I'm okay with that. Um,
yeah.
I also, and I'm sorry to keep rambling on
No,
about this,
no, please. I'm all in. This is fascinating.
but I attended one of the coolest burials I've ever attended was a space burial where they sent they call it a symbolic portion of cremated remains. They put in a capsule and strap it to a rocket ship and literally send it out into space, either to go out of orbit and come back, to just go up and come back, or they just for good and it never comes back. You just explore the universe on this rocket ship forever. But
Wow.
even something like that, right? The scientist part of my brain says that's cross contamination, right? So not only is my essence, but my essence broken down to the smallest thing that could exist of me, right? My
Mhm.
ashes, which still contain DNA, is being dispersed. Who's to say this thing isn't going to explode? And then essentially my DNA could be spread across
Oh
multiverses.
my gosh.
Like, but yeah, it's mind blowing.
You are really blowing my mind right now. I'm making all sort of gestures because I'm just like, wow, I'm living in like 1902.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think like we do this all like in advancement of humanity, right? But then if you
Mm,
really think about it, the Egyptians believed in the circle of necessity, which was a 3,000-year journey to the sun and back, which is why they created the pyramids and the mausoleum temples, and why they essentially created the embalming process, so that when they returned from this um, circle of necessity, they would be able to reanimate and recognize themselves and have, the things that they enjoyed in this life, right? And it sounds crazy depending on what you believe, but I remember during COVID when everybody was supposed to be locked in the house, they did this whole big ritual in front of the entire world of moving sarcophagi and canopic jars and relics out of some of these mausoleum temples. Did you see that?
no.
It was like a whole thing. I'm gonna see if I can find it.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a whole thing that happened during COVID.
Wow.
I'm gonna look it up right now and put it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah. And that really, I mean, I'm kind of thinking about like the ethics of museums, housing coffins and
Mhm.
I know that the local campus UC Berkeley here is beginning to return indigenous peoples artifacts that they have been dug up to
Mhm.
them because yeah, it's not really ethical. So gosh, this is so interesting.
Yeah. And like even last week when we went to the International African American History Museum, and there were relics there, but the thing I appreciated was that there were not any coffins and there were not any bodies. And to me, that's so what's the word I'm looking for? The word I'm looking for is the people that like go out and act poachers. Like to
Yeah,
me, that's poaching,
right,
How would you feel if I dug up your great grandmother and then put her in a case? Like
right.
I don't know. It's yeah, it's
Yeah,
poaching.
it's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I'm also thinking about, going back to like the reanimation of photos and even having some sort of FaceTime with AI technology and speaking to the dead. I really just rely on my dreams for that.
Mhm.
And so I'm just wondering, what is your dream life like?
My dream life is very interesting. It is very very prophetic.
Mm,
Um I dream it. I'll say this. I think I dream every day, every night, or every morning.
hmm
I really the dreams I recall are the ones that I have right before I wake up.
hmm hmm
They can be as simple as they're never like I don't have dreams of me flying through space, if that makes sense. The
hmm
dreams that I have are always messages.
hmm
I moved into the house that we're in, which is the house my grandparents built about 50 years ago,
Mm,
about a year and a half ago. And I started having dreams about things that were happening in walking life every single day,
mhm,
every single day, to the point where I was dreaming about getting calls about someone dying. And literally within 24 hours, someone was dying.
mm,
Um, and I don't want to say that I turned it off, but it was a little intense. But to answer your question, my dream life is very prophetic. It's always messages, it's always warnings, it's always insight. It's not
mhm,
candy and rainbows.
mm-mm,
For example, like when I dream about snakes, I know that there's some type of chaos coming, or I need to be
mm,
on the lookout for something. When I dream, they just always have a message. And what I'm learning to do and trying to be more disciplined in doing is writing them down so that I
mhm.
can have some type of reference. I speak a lot about my mama Julie, who was like a grandmother to me. But people used to actually come and pay her to interpret their dreams.
Wow.
Yeah. And she talked to us a lot about the dream state, the dream world, and now projection and about, again, messages and dreams. It reinforces what I was saying about my Aunt Vic. Like, we come from good stock,
That's
and
right.
those intuitive gifts and those abilities to read and look into those things and get the messages from them, to me, it's a sacred gift. And so
Absolutely.
I really appreciate my dream life is very much appreciated, even when I see things I don't want to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I had really intense dreams last night, and it was almost like I was lucid dreaming. Not that I could control it, but I actually kept telling myself, "You're just nervous about the interview." Like I kept reminding
Why?
myself, I was like, "Everything is fine. This is not real. You're just nervous." And like I was trying to assure myself, this is a nervous dream. This is not really happening because it was very dark.
Mm. Why were you nervous?
Um, I don't do a lot of cold reaching out to people for the podcast. I want
Mm,
to really, having this podcast is really a spiritual experience for me. And so, I research people. I want to be in relationship with people. I want people to feel like you sharing so intimately is really sacred.
mm.
But I was just, so you have been on my list since launched the podcast last year. And, I'm like, I want to court her. And and then I just kind of felt called to reach out to you. And I'm
Mhm.
like, she's probably not going to say yes, but like, it was just like stirring in me. So I had to listen to it. And so when you said yes, I just about fell out my chair. I was so overwhelmed. And so
Oh,
I just, like I said, I just really want to make sure that you feel honored that you're sharing these really important stories. And so, yeah, I get really nervous.
well, I want you to know, like, I am so glad that you asked. And I honestly felt called to say yes because
Mm.
I have been in a place where I have been intentionally saying no.
Oh,
So
wow.
I believe that we're supposed to have this conversation. I believe that what you are doing is sacred and special. And I thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Oh, it's truly my honor. Truly, truly.
And I don't want the conversation to end. So don't worry about time. Like, we can
Oh
just
my
talk.
gosh. Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Because, I was looking at the clock.
I saw, I'm like, oh no, I don't want her to stress.
Thank
we're
you.
we're good.
Thank you so much for your grace. I want to switch gears a little bit, but kind of not. When you
Okay.
first launched your podcast, it was actually called Death at the Movies podcast.
Yes.
And you were really referencing a lot of the film and television that had such a big impact on you as a young person in your interest in working in the death and grief space. This is definitely something we have in common. Anytime we're watching television or a movie and there's a grief or a death scene, I start recording it.
Mm.
So I'm just wondering, what are some of you mentioned the housewives, like what are some of the TV shows or maybe movies that are really impactful to you at this time?
That's a really good question. So of course the housewives, I'm a housewife junkie. Not so much for the drama. I honestly believe that these women have to present Bravo with a very sustainable business plan in
Right.
order to get on the show and to remain on the show. And
Mhm.
I am in awe of and celebrate that, especially when I see Black women on these television shows.
Mm.
Married to Medicine, the all of the franchises.
Yeah.
Um, I am disappointed in some of the activities that I see on there, but it's still in awe of the principles, right?
Yeah.
Um, I also, like any other death curious person, and shout out to Alexander Joe
Mm.
for coining that term death curious. But
Mhm.
um, I am into the forensic files and the unsolved mysteries
Yes.
and the cold case and the investigative
Yes.
anything. I love that. And I have been since a child. I think I am very attracted to and again curious about the unknown.
Mhm.
So whenever there's an element of suspense and mystery, I'm locked in.
Mhm.
Movies, um, honestly, I my movie choices are inspired by what makes me feel something. So if
Mm.
my favorite part of the movies is watching the premiere.
Oh.
Like I have to be there 20 minutes early so I can see what's coming to theaters, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So whatever makes me feel. In the last movie that I saw that drew me in through the premieres was it has Sheldon in it. Hold on one second. I'm gonna tell you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sheldon, what is his name?
Um, what is his name? I can see his face.
Sheldon. His name is Jim Parson.
There you go.
It is called Spoiler Alert.
Oh,
That preview had me bawling in
really?
the I said premieres, I meant previews.
Oh, right,
That
right, right.
preview had me bawling in the theater. And I didn't get to see it in the theater, but I did get to see it at home, and it had both my husband and I bawling.
Oh,
I mean, it was just such a great movie. It dealt with everything: terminal illness,
wow.
grief, marriage, relationships, and not the pretty parts of marriage, the bad
Right.
parts, the hard parts, which now being a married person, I appreciate when that's shown,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So yeah, I also like movies that make me think. One of the last movies that really did that was Don't Worry, Darling. Have you seen that
Oh,
movie?
I haven't.
It's really trippy. And as I'm speaking, I'm realizing that I like sci-fi. I'm a huge
Okay.
sci-fi fan. Um, I used to really, really like scary movies, like horror movies.
Oh, wow.
The the more I've gotten into my career in death care, I've had to kind of close that door in my mind
Mm.
because I am curious and divination and playing with demons doesn't work
Right,
together.
right, right.
Um, so yeah, I don't do as many scary movies anymore. And my scary movies have become forensic files.
Okay.
Because that's
Okay.
real.
Fair enough.
But yeah, the don't worry, darling, it talks a lot about consciousness and again that control
Mm.
and deciding who has the right to our conscious essence.
Wow.
I love Black Mirror.
Oh my gosh. Ooh. It's
Um,
it really stretches the brain, doesn't it?
it's a documentary.
Mm. Say more.
It's a documentary. Like if you really watch the episodes
Ooh.
and you pay attention to current events, it is a mirror and it's showing the dark side of the mirror
Mm-hmm.
and how things can go left very easily. One of my favorite episodes on there is about I think she's either British or Scottish. Her husband passes away in an accident
Mm-hmm.
and she is given this card by a friend who lost someone that they love, I think a child.
Mm.
And basically, she sent a box of a duplicate of her husband that she puts in the bathtub in water for so many hours. and she has to go online and upload like his pictures and his text messages and any voicemails that she has.
Oh,
And
wow.
this thing is reanimated to look, sound, speak, walk, talk, and essentially be her husband, but it lacks his spiritual essence.
Mm.
And so she wants to destroy it. She takes it to the edge of a cliff and tells it to jump. And it says to her, I will if you really want me to. And she can't do it because it
Mhm.
looks, sounds, So
Right.
it again goes into that consciousness and that essence and who has the right to say when it begins and when it ends.
Right.
Um, yeah, so those are the types of TV shows and movies that really get to me.
Mhm.
And the reason
Mhm.
I changed the name of the podcast, initially I love going to the movies, and at that time I had Movie Pass, and then I had the AMC stub, so I was going to
Uh-huh.
the movies 3 and 4 times a week, and
Okay. Okay.
watching like that was my outlet. Um,
Yeah.
and during COVID, of course, I wasn't able to do that as often, but I wanted to talk about the impact that have on our perception of death and grief.
Mhm.
It just wasn't at the time. I think it was a little ahead of its time. And so
Uh-huh.
I decided to make it a segment in the Death and Grief Talk podcast as opposed to the podcast. It's turned out to be a good choice.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I've definitely been noticing there's a lot more grief being expressed in entertainment these days compared
Yes.
to even a few. I think COVID has changed us. I mean, obviously, for so many reasons, but there's just a lot more grief on the screen now.
Hmm. There is.
Mhm.
And I think people need it more. I
Yes.
think I think people needed it before, but I think that unfortunately we live in a world fueled by trends,
Mhm.
and death and grief have become a trend.
Mm.
But
Mm.
it's also it, it has more positive implication than negative because people really need an outlet.
That's right.
And we don't always get that in our families or in our communities. And sometimes it's just easier to relate to strangers.
Right.
You can be
Right.
more vulnerable. So I think it's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah. I definitely sometimes feel like, the idea of Netflix and chill is our yearning to sit around the fire and like hear each other's stories.
Mm.
Another way that it visualizes for me is sitting on the porch and just watching people in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really, really miss sitting on the porch at my grandmother's house. Like we want to know what's going on with each other.
Right.
Yeah, so I definitely feel like, the popularity of um reality shows is like, what's going on with these people? What are they doing?
Right. And you know
Yeah.
what's so interesting to me? Like I just literally before I got in here, we were eating like I guess lunch and watching The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Hmm.
And I remember being in the shower this morning thinking, I'm really watching this show because I want to know what's gonna happen with Kyle and Mauricio. Like, I don't care about Sutton, I don't care about uh Dorit. I don't care about
Right,
any of these people. I want to know what's gonna happen with Kyle and Mauricio. And that is
right.
horrible. That is horrible.
It's, but I can relate. Right now, I've really been enjoying Love is Blind.
People keep telling me about that. Is it good?
Oh my gosh, it is so good because you date on the when they're dating, they're separated by a wall so they can't see each other.
Okay.
And so you're just dating, getting to know someone's personality, and then you have to propose to whoever, you're dating a bunch of different people, then you propose, and then you get to meet the person. And so, it's just really interesting to see, it's an interesting mind exploration. Like what would have happened if I didn't, and my father was actually blind, so I've thought about this a lot in my life.
Hmm.
Like if he could see, would he have still chosen my mother? I don't know. And I also think like just being disabled, like your position in life will often dictate who you're choosing as partners, who you're choosing as friends, and what you have access to. So I just find it all very fascinating.
It is. That is real. That is interesting.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing I constantly say watching Love is Blind and with the Housewives, I think a lot of these shows, I'm always wondering like, what would it be like if they weren't drinking so much?
You know what? That is a good question. And then that's actually a theme in Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle isn't drinking. And if anybody's watched the show, you know, she's the turn up queen. But that is a very good question. Because what that does is it makes me think about personal relationships. I'm going through this season right now where my friendships look a lot different, right? And I'm grieving a lot of the friendships that I had prior. I won't even say to getting married, but moving to South Carolina, right, from Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And a big connection in some of those friendships was the fact that we used to get together and have a great time.
Mm-hmm.
And not saying that was our only connection because it wasn't. Like
Right.
there were deep spiritual, emotional, and just common interest connections. But my husband's Baha'i, so he doesn't drink
Mm.
or smoke.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, I drink a lot less because
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't, and I just don't have time. Like it's
Right.
like I have to be up in the morning or I have to travel, you know, I might have a glass of wine or something. So it, it and I've been thinking about that. Like, I wonder if we were all in that same space or that party mode, would those connections still exist and be as tight, you know? But
Mm-hmm.
then on the other hand, it's kind of like, well, no, because you're just in a completely different season. Everyone's in a completely different
Right.
season.
Right.
And that's a really good question.
Yeah.
And why is alcohol like a universal good time?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, it loosens your inhibition so you're more comfortable. Um, but then it also changes you. And sometimes, for many people, it just makes them more fun and gregarious. But what if you removed it? Like, I would love to see just a sober season and just
Mm,
how those relationships, of any of the shows, just to see like how those relationships would bloom without alcohol. I've actually recently changed my relationship with alcohol as well. I would like to not drink again. It's not my friend at all. Um, and actually, this started in the fall. There was two things that happened. I'll speak only about one right now. But I was speaking with someone and she was saying in her culture, Haitian culture, the idea, how we call alcohol spirits.
mm,
And so alcohol is an offering for spirits. And when you drink
mm.
alcohol, you're actually consuming spirits.
Yeah.
And when she said that, I was like, oh, because I had recently felt like the month prior to her saying that, I was like, I think I said it in a dream. I was like, I feel haunted.
Oh.
I know. And then when she said that, I was like, oh no, no, no. Oh no. Oh no. I can't do this anymore. If I'm feeling haunted and then there's confirmation that there's this link between drinking spirits and unsettled spirits, oh no.
Mhm. You know, that's very interesting. As a death care professional, and particularly as a funeral director, it's like that was my family's biggest concern was
Mm,
that most funeral directors are alcoholics, my uncle included. He drank
mm,
himself to death.
mm.
And I thank God that that has not been my experience, but I came very close, especially after my uncle died. I think I was drinking as a way to feel connected to him, like
Yeah,
excessively. And like you said, it wasn't my friend in the way that I was consuming it.
right.
Um, I love that analogy. And I mean, it's a fact. When you said it, it was like, oh, that's truth.
Mm-hmm.
That alcohol is an offering to spirits and that you are drinking spirits. I'm just repeating. I'm like I'm settling with what you said.
Right,
Like,
right, right.
and I've also heard that there's a difference in the way that alcohol is made, and of course the way wine is made, which is why wine is more socially acceptable universally, as opposed to like vodka or,
Mm.
tequila or whatever. And I also think, and this is kind of left wing, but even thinking about, like, again, current events, like this whole thing with Diddy, right?
Mm.
Um,
Ooh.
and to frame it, like the grief that people are
Yeah.
expressing based on their interaction and experience with him. I, when I hear these stories, what I envision is a demon, and
Mm.
it is feeding not only on the horrible things that have been said or that he's being accused of,
Mm-hmm.
but also on the attention that those things are getting.
Yes.
So, in a sense, yes, people have been liberated by sharing their stories, but now this thing has media attention, it has
Mm.
lawsuits, it has
Mm.
money. It's it's expanding instead of imploding. I
Mm.
think that even I don't know if you're.
Uh-oh, you cut out. Can you hear me?
Oh, that's how you know the conversation is getting real. The whole
Right.
thing shut
Okay.
down.
Okay. Somebody said, I don't want y'all talking about this.
But I was asking, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this whole Risa Tisa thing on TikTok, where this young lady had a 52-part series about who did I marry, right?
Right. I've been hearing about it, but I haven't watched. Tell me more, please.
I'm ashamed to say I watched it in real time, like as
Okay.
it was coming out, all
Yeah.
of them. But even like her naming this gentleman Legion, right? Like I think there's definitely merit to her story, and that it's noble of her to be so vulnerable and it deserves to be celebrated. But why is this woman on USA Today? Why is she on Tamron Hall? Like there are real
Mm.
things happening in the world right now.
Right.
Um and her consequences of her bad choices in desperation don't, in my mind, equate to national news, you know?
Right.
So again, she attached that name to him, and now that thing is spreading.
Right.
Like, so again, like I say, like you asked me what I'm curious about. I'm also as curious as I am about autonomy and AI,
Mhm.
be it artificial intelligence or artificial immortality. I'm also curious about the spiritual aspect of the internet. Like
Mm.
before, just like taking a drink, you're limited. Like you said, you felt haunted.
Right.
Now we're all haunted by this
Oof.
thing, whether we realize it or not,
Oof.
constantly.
Yeah.
And now we're expanding this where we're wanting to put this in our bodies.
Mm.
So what is that? You
Ooh.
know?
Wow. That's real food for thought.
Yeah.
Wow.
So may I ask, you said you felt haunted.
Mhm.
Since changing your relationship with alcohol, have you done some sort of cleansing or been intentional about healing? Or
Mhm.
how did you release yourself from that haunting?
Yeah. So similar to your uncle, when I was a teenager, and I was very moody. Oh, I was such a moody teenager. And my grandfather was an alcoholic and he died decades before I was born. So I didn't know him,
Mhm.
but I would start sneaking. My grandmother had, I mean, to speak on how little my grandmother drank, she had his brandy bottle in the pantry
Oh,
after
wow.
like several decades.
Wow.
I know. She would just have like a little sip, every few months. Like it was nothing major. And so I started drinking sherry in the pantry, not even to get drunk. It was more, I think, to feel connected to him.
Mhm.
And then, college and my 20s and 30s were just a whole different situation. And I was really just having like a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol. So since September, I feel like I've deepened my spiritual life.
Mhm.
So I'm an earth sign, I'm a Capricorn, sun and rising Virgo moon. So it's all earth all day over here. And so really like grounding. into the earth, whether that means barefoot on dirt or grass.
Mhm.
Like I live in a townhouse, so I don't have a ton of, outdoor space on my, it's outside of my front door, but my yards are concrete and all of my plants are in pots. But sometimes I'll just sit outside and I have one pot with all dirt, no plant in it, and I'll just put my feet on the dirt in the pot.
Mm.
Um, last year, it was almost a year ago now, but I started taking Afrobeats dance class.
Oh.
Yeah, just once a week with this really lovely woman whose name is Karma, by the way.
Oh.
I know. It gets deep. And that has been very, very healing for me. There was one time I was in the shower after dance class and I could hear one of my ancestors saying, "The more you dance, the more you'll be able to hear us."
Ooh.
I know. So, pounding my feet on the ground, putting my feet on dirt, again, praying every night with my grandmother, I feel more free. Like
Mm.
on a Friday evening when I would have just had a glass of wine to unwind, it's like now I'm just using my breath
Mm.
to unwind. You spoke about the chakra system earlier, and 2 weeks ago, my back went out.
Mm.
Like I could barely walk. And in the stretches that I've been doing over the past few weeks, I can feel that tension leaving my lower back and my buttocks actually.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what am I letting go of? These root chakra fears of, am I stable? Do I have a community? Will I be financially okay? Am I safe?
Mm-hmm.
I had an event, I had an experience like a month ago, and I was faced with someone who caused me harm. And then my mother's death anniversary was like a few weeks after that. And then my very first hospice patient was on the day of my mother's death anniversary.
Mm.
And then 5 days later, my back goes out.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, there are some things that I really need to be tending to in my grief, um, in the things that have happened to me, in the things that I'm trying to not hold on to anymore. Again, like how can I alchemize those into strengths
Mm-hmm.
by setting boundaries? You know, so it's been like an ongoing thing. And then actually, speaking of people just feeling called to reach out to one another, a woman who I used to see at the local pub my husband and I would go to before we moved, she has become a sobriety coach.
Oh, wow.
I know she was a bartender there, is still a bartender. I'm like, at first I was like, I don't need this. And I'm like, Andrea, the universe is giving you a gift.
Right.
And so even just meeting with her once a week to discuss my relationship with alcohol and when I a month ago when I came face to face with someone who had caused me harm as a child, I did drink wine that day and I hadn't in about a month and a half. And what I realized, I was like, I needed to come out of my body in that moment,
Right.
And so it's like, oh, okay, so this is my pattern. If I need to come out of my body real quick, if I need to decompress real quick, then wine was my go-to. So how can I use my body and my breath to and slow down that process instead of being needing that like real quick, oh, I just can't deal with this. I just need to decompress. It's like, okay, it might take me 20, 30 minutes. And so building in that time in my day, my evening stretching, my breath work, um, slowing down, kind of speaking to when you were talking about how time has changed since COVID. I'm like, I don't have time to drink wine anymore because I'm too busy stretching and praying,
Right.
which which I mean, I laugh because I'm always saying like I'm just turning into my grandmother. That's all that's happening.
Isn't you just said something so powerful when you said you're
Mhm.
turning into your grandmother. And I think we as Black women kind of resist that.
Yes.
My husband tells me all the time, "You're becoming your mother." And I'm like, don't you say that, you know? Um, but I think it to me it's a series of portals, right?
Mm,
Um, and like it's real cute to talk about timeline jumping and quantum leaping and all that stuff, but
right.
when you really think about it, that stuff is terrifying
Yes.
because you have to change
Mm,
and you have to really like when you talk about going through like a portal is a death, like, but it's also a birth.
yes.
And I feel like we're in this constant portal. Like we're constantly jumping through these portals. So I say that to say I'm very proud of you for having the bravery to jump through that portal.
Thank you. Thank you. It was time. It was time. It's been time. I waited I've been dragging my feet about this for a long, long time. Well, and now that you brought up the death and the rebirth, my dream last night, I was being consumed in a fire.
Ooh,
And so when I was telling myself, you're just nervous about this conversation, like this is not real. When I woke up, I was like, wow, like the old me is really getting burned away.
right.
So, and I actually just saw a snake 2 weeks ago, actually right after my back went out. I went for a walk with my dog at a local park, and there was a disemboweled snake off to the side.
Mm,
And I remember thinking like, "Ooh, okay." Like is the transformation over? Like I've been trying to kind of figure out what was the symbology of that for me, but yeah, I definitely feel like I've been going through a portal, and I always say I'm like, I hope I'm done with all these transformations. It is hard, but we're probably never done, right?
oh, and like the thing is, like even when we die, we transform as well, you
That's
know?
right.
And
That's
that's
right.
the beauty in it. I think for me, it's the resistance. And like I've been feeling a lot of tension in my hips lately.
Okay.
And I've been like what you said about the gift. I keep seeing these things about what is it called? Somatic stretching and somatic. And it's like, okay, I don't want to be on the floor bawling. Like, I
Right,
don't want to
right.
go there, but maybe that's what I need. And then what you're saying about the dance is such an affirmation. And confirmation. One of
Mm.
the activities at last week's event, actually two, one was a drummer, one was a dancer. And
Oh,
they were talking about the relationship between the drum and the dance and the drummer and the dance. And
yes.
so it's almost like your sharing and vulnerability is pushing me towards embracing the gifts that are being laid before me. And like you, I'm like, I don't need
I know.
that. But it
But I
makes
guess we do. And we needed
you
to
do.
we needed to remind each other of that.
Yes.
Oh goodness. I really wish us a lot of grace on these transformative journeys that we're on. I really do.
Yes. Us
Yeah.
and everyone else that can
Yes,
relate.
that's right. And the listeners and the people
Yes.
who don't listen in as well, because we're all going through it all the time. That's like you said, even in death, we're also transforming. So this is, I guess, just the human experience. Mm. I know. I know. That was really something. So I just want to speak to a few more things that you have on your website. I encourage everyone to go to thegravewoman.com. She has so many different courses for both death care workers as well as just grievers. So you have the Grief and Zodiac audio e-course.
Mhm.
You've got classes like melanin makeup masterclass, shampooing, detangling, and conditioning the black hair, not just for morticians, but also people who might be working in hospice or who might even just be tending to their loved one who is in their elder years or in the dying process. There's also the grief art workshop, which I think is another way that we can alchemize and transmute some of our feelings if we're called to that.
Yes.
Um, so is there anything else that you would like to share about your offerings and the way that you show up in the end of life space that I haven't touched on already?
I want to thank you for like you are like so unique in like your research and your questions and even like talking about the offerings. I really appreciate that.
Mm.
I will say that every offering on that that site is it goes back into that intuitive space, right? And each offering is a reaction to a void. And I know in business that makes sense, like supply and demand, right?
Right.
But for me, it's a little bit deeper. We're not taught how to care for us as Black
Right.
people in military school or in
Mm.
health, um, unless you are very blessed to, like myself, have worked a past life as a cosmetologist or done makeup or
Mhm.
been surrounded or done your own hair your own life. A lot of us don't even know how to care for our own hair. So for
Mm.
me, those courses are in response to that void, not only in education but in our personal lives. Uh,
Mm.
each offering, I like to say, is inspired by spirit. There have been weeks where I've come up with 3 or 4 offerings and I put them all out there. Then there are times like now where I don't I nothing new has come up other than offering the grief alchemy, but it's time for things to get a facelift. So I would like to share that one of the newest features about these courses is that within the next month they'll all, for the exception of the workshops like the grief art workshops or the intuitive work, they'll all be self-study because
Mhm.
that's been the biggest, in my mind, barrier to people
Mm.
being able to take advantage of them is the fact that they're based on my schedule and availability.
Mhm.
The downside to that for me is that unfortunately there are people in the world that, you know, copy and paste. And that's
Mm.
my biggest fear with doing that.
Mhm.
But I've
Mhm.
gotten to a space in my spiritual journey where spirit is like, we got you. Like you're
Mm.
protected. And not only are you protected, everything that we birth through you is protected.
That's
So I have to
right.
trust that. And I am just noticing that beautiful picture of you and your grandmother behind you. It's like it popped out just a minute ago.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like you, like she really is my guiding light. She really, really
Mm.
is. She died when I was 22.
Oh.
So it's been a long, long time, but she really was my first mother. My parents and I lived with her,
Mhm.
and while my father was sick and dying, my mother was busy. So I was with my grandmother constantly, and then I lived with her again later in high school, and so she really has formed who I am. And
Mm.
this is kind of a weird comment, but it's something that has stayed with me. When I was in the seventh and eighth grade, I had a teacher, Mrs. Gilliam, who said, if you're doing something and like your parent can't be in the room while you're doing it, then you shouldn't be doing it. And that includes sex.
Mm.
And I remember at the time being like, oh, that's that, okay, I don't know about all that.
That's weird.
Right? Like that's weird. But what I took it like later in my 20s and 30s, I was like, okay, like if you messing with the wrong person, you're not
Ooh.
gonna you're gonna be ashamed of that. But even if you're
Ooh.
being intimate and it's with the person who you're supposed to be intimate with, they're good for your soul and your body and your spirit, then you wouldn't feel shame. If your grandmother pop, you might
Ooh.
be embarrassed. But so the idea of having my grandmother, she's a part of every conversation I have, every Zoom, um, I'm sure, I sometimes have trepidation because we did have a little bit of a spicy relationship because I pushed back a lot on religion. I was raised Catholic.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like if she's my guiding light and if she could be in the room with me and I know I'm doing her right, then I feel like that's all I really need to know.
I
So,
love that.
Mother Dumas.
Mother Doomis.
Yes.
I love
Yes.
that.
Thank you. And so that brings us to our final question. Knowing that we carry our grief in tandem with our love, two sides of the same coin, what is your life recipe for tending grief?
Ooh, I think the best way I can say it is die empty.
Mm,
Yeah, I that's my goal. Like that's it.
wow,
Um, yeah, that's it.
that's it. Y'all heard it here first. Die empty. That's it. Done. Joelle, thank you so much for your time and your generosity. I've just loved this conversation so very much.
Thank you for having me. Like I'm so glad that we were compelled to connect with one another, and I pray that the connection continues.
Oh,
I really
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And now Here's a little advice from my grandmother.
Life isn't easy. You just have to make the best of it.